Yo. What's up, YouTube? And welcome to Let's Talk About It on the It's Mental channel, where we talk about everything mental health. And it doesn't matter what walk of life you are, we're going to be exploring it with you. This thing that we like to call mental health, but not just mental health in itself, but we're talking about the health profession and its whole entity. I'm your host, Twist Johnson. So I want you to grab a seat and we're going to be talking about some stuff that we're going to be breaking down about mental health today. We're not just going to be talking about mental health today. We're going to be talking about social work, therapists, counselors, and we're going to be talking about mental health professions. We're going to figure out how they wrap into each other. We're going to sit down. I want you to grab your seats and I want you to buckle up because I'm gonna be freelancing, but I'm also gonna be interacting. I want y'all to get this information. How y'all doing? Hope y'all doing good out there. I'm doing fine. You see, I got my headphones in today because I want to make sure that I get this information. I want to eat today. I want y'all to get all the information possible when it comes to this. This episode is dedicated to breaking down the difference. So, a lot of us, we always want to know counselors, therapists, social workers, mental health providers. What's the difference between them? Aren't they the same? They just have different titles. Well, what if I told you that there is a slight difference and there is a difference in the gray lines? So today what we're going to do now is break down the difference between all the different functions. Stay tuned. Let's chop it in and buckle up your seats and get ready. So, I know that you're probably a bit confused and like, do they do the same things? Okay, well, let's just break it down. Okay, so what each one generally does, and then we're going to compare and contrast the similarities and the differences. Okay, so follow me. Here we're going to go through it. Let's start with counselors. How do they work? What's different for them? Counselors, the focus is on helping clients with specific challenges, and it's often related to personal, emotional, or social issues. They might work in the schools, private settings, private practices, or even the community, like community centers. And the focus is on things like stress, self improvement, self esteem, self awareness, and career guidance. So this is usually where the coaches and things like that, things in that nature will come into play. Um, Counselings, they also may have licenses and like the LPC, and what that stands for is a licensed professional counselor, or they have an MNHC, licensed mental health counselor. So those are the certifications that a counselor would have. Let's continue digging deep. Therapists, they can have a similar approach and a similar background, but they tend to focus on the broader range of things when it comes to the mental health profession, like in the mental health issues. So they're often diving into like the deeper into the long term emotional and psychological challenges that people face. Therapists, they might use various approaches. So we getting into that. And it's more like cognitive behavior or psychology, psychological methods. Depending on their expertise and their training, some therapists license in the LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker. Under those brackets, they have CSWs, which is a clinical social worker, and they can operate as counselors and mental health professionals and family and relationship therapists. So, therapists, they might work on issues that take longer to resolve. So, we getting down, we got to talk about our feelings, etc., etc. So, how does that look? They often work with clients over an extended period addressing the complex emotional issues or behavior issues. And when we're talking about behaviors, we're talking about trauma, relationship patterns, triggers from the past endeavors to help you channel, become a better you inside the different world that you're in now. And they also have unique approaches. Not only can they provide counseling, but they also connect people with resources. Resources like housing, financial aid, or other social services and other social worker providers. Social workers, They usually have a master's in social work, and the other word for it is MSW, Masters of Social Work, and then the LCSW, Licensed Clinical Social Worker. And this allows social workers to do a variety of functions. Do therapy, they can do counseling, they can do family and child therapy, and they can channel in on the feelings, but they can also be provided. So let's wrap it in. Let's talk more in depth. As a big part of social workers, take a holistic approach. And when I say holistic, they start, they're looking at the client's environments, they're advocating for them, and they go above and beyond. Above and beyond usually what therapy might channel into and what counseling might turn into. This is more advisory. So it's connected in between behavior health as well. But the terms can change and they conclude any mental health profession. But they all focus on the behavior or in mental health treatments, such as psychotherapy. They can become psychiatrists, they can become nurse practitioners, and they could perform in any setting. Not saying therapists and counselors cannot, but they could provide a variety of more services. They all fall under the same umbrella. That's how people get them confused inside these work environments. Let's break the confusion. We're going to talk about behavioral health providers now. Behavioral health providers work with patients on mental health conditions, addictions, and or behavior issues. They often collaborate with other social services, human services providers, particularly in the medical field. And it's also involved in managing complex cases. And it's requiring a different type of approach and a different type of care. So now that we got that, in terms of the similarities, it sounds like we all aim to support mental health and its well-being, and to use in some form that counseling, therapists, and social workers are one and the same, but they have different functions. So yes, they all use the counseling methods and skills and are trained in mental health. However, it may overlap in some type of issues because of the way that they help with depressions, anxieties, and they often work closely in similar settings. Clinics, hospitals, private practices, schools, you name it. So, what about the differences more in depth? This is what you came for, so let's eat. Their differences comes from the training and the focuses that we differ in. See, counselors, they usually specialize in specific issues. Therapists, they handle more deeper rooted issues that's often more complex and it's more psychological with the psychological conditions. Combine counseling with advocacy and resources and connections. That's what the social workers do. Now, the behavioral health professionals, the providers, they can have a range of backgrounds. They tend to focus on the comprehensive parts of the mental health, like treatments, and it's often involved in more medical aspects than the counterparts of counseling, social work, and therapists. So, let's give an example. If someone wanted to help you with, let's say, managing stress, they could go to any of these professions, right? Yes, when we talk about stress, but however, a counselor might be a good first choice when it comes to stress, specifically because that's usually what the counselors are trained in. Now, if it's trauma, you want to go to a therapist because now you got to think about different approaches for the stresses and how they affect you in, whatever ways, financial or whatever. Now, social workers, on the other hand, they will help you find resources, while a behavior professional or behavior provider, however you want to spin it, they might be more involved on the medical side. And that's not always the case, but usually that's the approach. Now, I hope that clears things up. So now that we understand the unique roles with a lot of the overlaps that they have, but the similarities, the different expertise is what changes them. But the same thing is we all have the ultimate goal, supporting people, mental and emotional health. With that being said, I hope that cleared up a little bit of what mental health, social workers, therapists, and counselors do. So yes, there is a silver lining depending on what functions that you're conducting And it might feel like, what's the use of the different terminologies when they all do the same? But it's not true. Um, Certifications, education, and skill sets separate the differences, and all of them zoom in on one different particular aspects of counseling, of emotions, of navigating through services. So, which one is who and which one is better? The answer is no one is better than the other. If you're talking to a social worker, a social worker might feel like, well, we could focus more on the clinical advisory and we could actually delegate the tasks and do the same things as therapists, counselors, and mental health providers, which is true. However, the difference is like the domains differ, and it all depends on what type of provider you're talking to. If you're talking to a social worker that's in a school setting, they might need additional support with the services, and that means that you'll probably have to have a school therapist and a school counselor along with the social worker. If you're in a mental health setting, like a rehabilitation facility, you would have to have additional services as well. So you'll have the social worker, but you'll also have the case manager, and you'll also have the mental health behavior specialist. And you also have to have the social worker that's privy and nurse practitioners. If you're dealing with people inside of sessions, therapists, you can deal with family, you can deal with children, you can give parenting advice. You can give child development advice. Focus on the traumas. Focus on the triggers, techniques that can help someone build differ. This is the skills training. Usually, that's where I'm at, but I'm also like classified as mental health. So when we get into the mental health thing, if you didn't catch that, mental health is more of a broader name that falls under the bracket of social services, human services, and it just like sums it all up when it comes to the mental health domain. And the mental health domain under the social services field falls under social workers, therapists, counselors, and mental health providers that focus on the behavior. So I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. If you didn't understand it, you can ask more in depth. I'm always open to have the discussion. If you know other reasons why you can tell the difference in who is who when it comes to therapists, social workers, counselors, and mental health behavior professionals, you can leave the comments in the comment section below, and you could break it down if you're a helping profession, and you could give your take on what's the difference between a social worker, therapist, counselor, or behavior provider. I hope that you guys learned something. I was glad to teach it. That's my time. I'll miss y'all. Peace.